Hello everybody. Today our session is very important. It is related to method of teaching English and how to be a professional teacher. Today we are going to talk about planning, lesson planning, how to plan a lesson. We all know that planning is very important, not only for teacher, but also for all people. If you want to succeed doing something, I think you need to plan it. Even in your social life, if you want to achieve something properly, if you want to achieve something successfully, you need to plan it. You need to think about it. You need to know the procedures and steps of doing it so as to achieve it accurately in its due time, without exerting much effort and without wasting a lot of time. Today, our session is about planning. So, by the end of this session, you are going to know or to recognize the importance of lesson planning. Why is lesson planning important? The other goal of our session today is the steps of planning a lesson. This is goal number 2. Okay? Goal number 3, you are going to know how to apply the steps of teaching different language skills like listening, reading, and writing. Okay? These are the goals of our session today. So, if I ask you a question, why do we plan in our life? This is a general question. Why is planning important in our life? Okay? If you think about the answer of this question, you will discover that planning in our life enables us to be successful, enables us to achieve our goals in life in general, enables us to save time and to go directly to what we want to achieve. So planning in our life socially is very important. If we move to lesson planning, you are a teacher and you need to know how to plan a lesson. So why is lesson planning is important? Okay? Why is lesson planning important for you as a teacher? Of course, from the very beginning, if you do not know your destination, if you do not know from the very beginning the place where you want to go, of course you will go wrong. This is exactly what is happening while you are teaching. If you do not know what do you want your learners to know, you won't be able to help them to learn. Okay? Or you will go wrong, or you will work haphazardly without achieving your objectives. So, effective and proper planning prevents poor performance. This means that if you plan your lesson properly, if you think of how to make your lesson much more effective, this of course will help you to avoid poor performance. Your performance will be suitable to your pupils during the lesson. So, why is planning important? Why is planning important? First of all, planning is important for some different reasons. First one, good planning saves time. Good planning saves time. Number 2, if you plan well, you will build the self-confidence. There will be mutual confidence between you as a teacher and your pupils. Your pupil will be very confident because you know from the very beginning what you are going to do. You know from the very beginning how to move from one stage to another in the lesson, how to move gradually from one part to other, how to realize, how to achieve the goals, how to create different activities during your lesson. And I think this is very important. So number one, the importance of lesson planning is that it saves time. Proper planning saves time. This is from the very beginning of your lesson, how you plan your time well. How are you going to teach this part? Okay, how long will it take? And how are you going to move from one part to another? This, of course, saves the time. Another importance of lesson planning, it builds self-confidence. Your pupils are very confident, and also you are very confident because you know what you are going to do. The third importance of lesson planning is that proper lesson planning saves effort. You are going to do your effort during the lesson properly. You are going to exert the effort in its suitable place. Okay? The other objectives is that good and effective lesson planning helps the teacher to achieve objectives, because from the very beginning of the lesson you know your objectives, you know what your pupils are going to achieve by the end of the lesson. So proper planning helps you to achieve your objectives of the lesson. You focus on and stress upon the objectives of the lesson you want to achieve. It also eliminates error and mistakes. If you plan well, you will eliminate error and mistakes. The other importance of lesson planning is that it develops skills, and which is really, really very important. So, lesson planning helps teachers to, number one, discover and decide what and how to teach. Discover and decide what and how to teach. Number two, it helps teachers to anticipate problems and think of solutions. And I think this point is very important, because if you plan your lesson well, you will try hard to think of the problems you might face during the lesson, the different questions you might face, and how will you help your pupils to solve the problem, and at the same time you are going to think of the solution to the problem you might face. Okay, this of course due to good and proper planning. It also helps pupils to gain confidence and give students confidence in their teacher. It will help the teacher to gain confidence in himself or herself, and at the same time it gives students confidence in the teacher. They are very confident in their teacher because they know that their teacher is doing well. He knows how to move from one part to other. He is well planned. Okay? So, a lesson plan helps teachers to, number one, manage time properly among the stages of the lesson. You know well your time. You plan and manage your time well. You know how are you going to move and how long each stage in the lesson takes. You are going to know, I'm going to move from activity 1 to activity 2 to activity 3, and I'm planning my time. Activity 1 might take 5 minutes, the second activity might take 3 minutes. It all depends upon your planning. Okay, so proper planning, good planning helps teachers to manage time properly among the stages of the lesson. Number two, if you plan your lesson well, you will think about the audio and visual aids you are going to use in the lesson. I want to achieve the objectives of the lesson. what aids I'm going to use to help me to achieve the objectives of the lesson. So you are going to think about it, audio aids or visual aids or other things that I will use to help me to achieve the objectives of the lesson, and at the same time this will help you to save, as we mentioned before, both time and effort. The third importance of lesson planning, it helps to teachers to reflect on their own teaching performance. Okay, from the very beginning of the lesson, I know the objectives, I plan my lesson well, so after the lesson I will reflect on my own performance. Did I really achieve the objectives of the lesson or not? Okay, am I going to develop something, to improve something in the next lesson, or is it okay? So you need to reflect upon your performance. Okay, let's now move to steps for lesson planning. What are the main steps of lesson planning? What are the main components of lesson planning? What are the different stages of lesson planning? Number one is objectives. Okay. Number two, teaching aids. Number three, learning strategies. Number four, review. Number five, warm-up. Number six, presentation of new material. Number seven, practice. Number eight, communication skills. Number nine, homework. And number 10, self-evaluation. These are the main steps of lesson planning. Okay, sometimes we can add something, sometimes you can omit something. It depends upon what is in your mind or what you plan to do with your pupils in the classroom. But I think these are the main elements of lesson planning. Let's talk about it first one, which is objectives. What are the objectives? Generally, learning objectives are written in terms of learning outcomes. Okay? At the very beginning of the lesson, they are learning objectives. By the end of the lesson, they became learning outcomes. Okay? So, objectives are what do you want your student to learn as a result of the lesson? What do you want your student to learn as a result of your teaching? Okay, these are the objectives of the lesson. Okay, what do you want your pupils to learn by the end of the lesson? Objectives are the destination you want your pupils to reach, okay, as quickly as possible, without wasting a lot of time and without exerting too much effort uselessly. Okay, let's move to second part of lesson planning, which is teaching aids. Okay, teaching aids means everything that you are going to use during the lesson that will facilitate teaching and learning, that will help your pupil to learn better, that will help your pupils to understand the lesson well, that will help them to love what you are teaching. Okay, so teaching aids are very important in the lesson. Why they are very important? Because they add fun and variety to your lesson. The more teaching aids you use, the more interesting your lesson will be. Okay, your student will feel that your teaching is fun. They love your lesson because you have a variety of teaching aids that make your lesson much more interesting and exciting for them. It also attracts students' attention and keep it. Okay? If you try to have a variety of teaching aids, this will attract the attention of your pupils, and they will get more involved and interested in the lesson, and they will keep being attentive much time during the lesson. This is because of you try to use a lot of related and interesting, exciting variety of teaching aids. Okay? It also facilitates teaching and learning. Sometimes when you try to explain something to your pupils, you find it very difficult to explain it orally or by using words and sentences. Sometimes you just show them a photo which is very expressive and can express the meaning easily even without talking. So this makes teaching and learning much easier for your pupil to understand. Okay? It also makes the new teaching using suitable teaching aids makes the new material memorable. Okay? Because there will be a relationship between the teaching aid and the material learned. Student will try to relate between the teaching aids used and the material or the information you are going to offer to your pupil during the lesson. There will be a relationship, a close relationship between the teaching aid and the information used or the information you give to your pupil during the lesson. And of course, if they forget the information, they can remember the teaching aid. And by remembering the teaching aid, they can remember the information. It also, teaching aids make language more alive and real for the pupil, because here you try to socialize the language by using some suitable teaching aids which are related to the pupils and which will be much more beneficial if it is related to the environment and their real life. Of course, using suitable teaching aids saves teachers time and effort. As I mentioned before, sometimes you try to without using a suitable teaching aid, you might use a lot of time to explain something which is very difficult for people to understand. You might use a lot of time, consumer of time, trying to explain something for them which is really difficult. But if you use suitable teaching aids, you will save, as we mentioned before, both time and effort. Okay. They also promote active involvement of students. Teaching aids help students to get more involved in the lesson, to be very active in the lesson, to be active participants, try to take an active role in the lesson. And this is exactly what we want our people to do during the lesson. We want our lesson to be learner-centered lesson, not teacher-centered lesson. I mean that we need to help our people to be very active in the lesson. We need to help our people to exert much effort. We need to help our students to do a lot, to work a lot, to practice a lot, to get much more involved in the lesson. This exactly will be through choosing suitable teaching aids. Okay. Also, teaching aids support students' understanding. It helps students, or a suitable and proper teaching aid helps students to understand the lesson well. It will not just only be information. We can change the information to be skill. We can do it through using suitable teaching aid. Also, teaching aids keep student attention. Student will be attentive for a long time during the lesson. They will not be absent-minded. They try to concentrate a lot. This will expand the attention time during the lesson, and also they make the lesson more interesting, more exciting for the pupil. Okay. Also, teaching aids help the teacher to present new topics. Sometimes there are some topics which might be higher than the actual level of the pupil, or something which is more abstract and it's difficult to explain for them. So using suitable teaching aids will help them to do this, and will help the teacher to overcome the problem of ambiguity for the pupil. Also, teaching aids provide a topic that promotes speaking or writing. If you want really to improve productive skills of the language, which are speaking and writing, you need to use suitable teaching aids that will help people to produce the language, that will help people to learn by working, by doing different activities, by exerting much effort during the lesson. Okay? Let's try to give some examples of or samples of teaching aids. Teaching aids may be cut out. You are going to cut some photos, some articles, something from a newspaper or a magazine. They may be posters. A teacher himself can be used as an aid. Okay, you can use yourself during the lesson as an aid for the pupil. Okay, book making, which I really like most. It is a good teaching aids if most teachers try to make use of this teaching aid, which is book making. Okay, I'm going to talk about it later. Then use bucket charts. Okay, you can also use pictures as teaching aids, chalk talk, where the family trip, chalkboard activity, flashcards, and so on. Let's talk about one of the most, and I think very important teaching aids, which is book making. What is book making? Students can make a book themselves and use it too. In book making, you try to socialize the curriculum. You try to socialize the learning course for the pupil, the textbooks for the pupil. You try to make them related to the pupils, to their environment, to their families, to be close. You try to make the course book close to the pupil. Okay, and at the same time, the pupils will be the writer of the book themselves. Try to socialize the information of the book. Try to socialize the setting of the book to be related to the pupil and to their environment. In this case, the pupils or the learners will really discover the importance of learning. They learn something which is really related to them. They learn something which they can apply, which they can practice. And of course, they try to create a close relationship between the course and the pupil themselves and the environment. It also helps people to write about themes. Book making helps people to improve the skill of writing by writing about themes like their families, their kitchen, and sport. For example, today I'm going to give a student, or the topic of the lesson, the title of the lesson is about football in England. Okay? the reading passage is about football in England. Pupils are going to read the passage which is about football in England, and in bookmaking they are going to change it to be about, for example, football in Egypt, football in America, football in our village, football in our city. This is what we call it bookmaking. You try to make what is not related to the pupil related to their environment. Okay. They also, in bookmaking, which I think is really important for pupils to know well and to try to apply it, each language learner should have their own dictionary. Okay? In your own dictionary, in your own private dictionary, you are going to divide it into different parts. You are going to divide your own private dictionary to, maybe you are going to write a vocab. Okay, you are going to put some very important sentences. You are going to write in it very important idioms and expressions according to your need. It is something related to you. It is something that you really write it because it has a meaning for you. It has specific importance for you. It is something which I do it myself. It's something which is related to me. It's something which I rate according to my needs. That's why it's very important for it. So all language learners should have their own private dictionaries. Okay, you can also write simple stories. Okay, if you read a story about it, maybe a family in England and their lives and so on, you can change the story to be about yourself, to be about your environment, to be about members of your family or your neighbors or people around you, something which you change to be related to you. This is what we call it bookmaking. Bookmaking, again, is a very important teaching aid, okay, through which you can make interesting, you can make learning and teaching much more interesting and exciting for your pupils. You try hard to help them to apply what they have learned in a very realistic situation, in a situation that are related to them, in a situation that are related to their social life, to something which they find it close to them, something which they feel, something which they live, not something which is really away from them. If we try to talk about it, maybe some rural area in the countryside, it's sometimes difficult that they carry about something which is really higher than their social life. Okay, and when they read something which is higher than their social life, they discover that, oh, it's something strange, it's something which is not related to us. But if you try to change this to be related to them, to be related to their real life, to their rural life, to their environment, this is something which will develop their skill, will develop their ability to learn, and at the same time they will love learning, because we learn something which is really related to me. Okay, I'm going to move to something which I think is very important for teacher, which is board organization. Okay, when you use the board, which is one of the most important aids of teaching and learning, you need to think how to organize your board. Okay, I advise most of the teachers to think, to imagine that you are the learners. Put yourself in place of the learner. and try to organize your board in a way that will help them to learn, in a way that will attract their attention. But of course, you need to plan this well. You need to think. You need to have a pre-planning stage. What will I write on the board? How am I going to divide the board? Which part will be the most important one? Which part I'm going to leave it from the very beginning of the lesson till the end? Which part I'm going to write the objectives and which part I'm going to leave it for the pupils to practice the language. So you need to think about how to organize your board, okay? So I think first thing you need to start with the date of the lesson. You are going to write which lesson unit or lesson unit 1, lesson 1, lesson 2, and so on. And you are going to mention the objectives of the lesson. And let's talk about this. Is it important for the teacher to mention the objectives of the lesson? Is it important for the pupil to know the objectives of the lesson? What do you think? I think it's very important for the student to know the objectives of the lesson. Okay? Don't take them blind. Try to tell them what they are going to do by the end of the lesson. What are the objectives that they need to gain by the end of the lesson? Okay? So, it is a must for the teacher to tell the pupils about the objectives of the lesson. To help them know what they will learn. Okay? Because if you do this, they will concentrate on achieving the objective of the lesson. Okay? It's not necessary to use the same terminology used in teacher's guide or in professional books related to the teacher. But you can use simple language. Simple language relate that will your pupils understand easily. Use different terminology, use simple words that will help your pupils to understand what they are going to learn by the end of the lesson. So, on the board, I advise most teachers to write the objectives of the lesson. And while teaching, try from time to time to take, hey, we have achieved the objectives number 1. We have achieved the objectives number 2, and so on. Then, okay, so you are going to write review. Very simple exercise. New words or new vocabulary will be in the middle of the board. Okay, and also new structure will be in the middle of the board, and you are going to leave new vocabulary and new structure from the very beginning of the lesson till the end. Okay? Because all the time your student, you need to look at them. You need to look at them from time to time to remember them, to memorize them, to change them from short-term memory to long-term memory. Okay? Then you are going to leave an empty place, an empty area on the board for your pupils to practice the language. So, I think it would be better if you divide the language into maybe 3 parts. First part for the review, the middle part for presenting new vocabulary and new structure, and empty part for empty area for your pupils to practice the language. At the top you are going to write the objective of the lesson, and finally, okay, you are going to write what you are going to ask your pupils to do at home. So, tips for board organizations. Some pieces of advice for board organization. Number 1, write neatly and clearly. Your handwriting should be clear for your pupils to see, to be readable for them. They can read what you write on the board easily without any difficulty. Write in a straight line. Okay? As we said, divide the board into different sections. Okay? Write only what you need at a time. Let's discuss this point, which is really important. Sometimes, as my job as a supervisor, when I visit teacher and I try to observe them, when I join them during teaching, they write first everything on the board. They may take about 10 minutes just writing on the board without explaining everything. After they finish writing, they start to teach, and this is not good. Okay? Write only what you need a time. Okay? Don't write everything before you start teaching. Write what you teach. Don't write more than you teach. Okay? Start with the review section. Okay? And in review section, you are trying to create just only the aim of review is to review previous lesson. You try to make a sort of connection between the previous lesson and the new one. Okay? You try to activate their pre-knowledge. Okay? And the knowledge which will help them to understand the new lesson. Okay? And also, when you organize your board, leave an empty section for your writing and for your student to write something. Okay? You can use bucket chart, which is one of the teaching aids for introducing and practicing. I can use bucket chart, which is one of the most important teaching aids. I can use it to present different aspects of the language. I can use them to present and to help my pupils or my learners to practice vocabulary. I can help them to practice word sounds. I can help them to practice words and sentence patterns. I can help them to practice word families, sequence of words, rearranging words to form sentences. This regarding bucket chart. So I can also use it to teach grammar, not only vocabulary. I can also use them to teach grammar by writing some words, and I ask them to rearrange the words to start with the subject, if it's a statement, then a verb, then an object, if I have an adverb, or can I put it. So it's very important for students to practice different aspects of the language. Now, I'm going to move to teaching strategies. For me personally, as soon as I read or I hear the word strategy, I think I am in a battle. I am in a military field. And I need to be well armed so as to win the battle. Okay? So, teaching strategies are very important because it will help you to discover the way you are going to use to achieve the objective of the lesson, the way you are going to use to help your pupils learn the lesson properly without wasting much time and effort. Okay? So, strategies are ways that teachers use for presenting the new material. Again, teaching strategies are ways teachers use for presenting new material. Which way are you going to use to present the new material? Okay? There are a lot of samples of teaching strategies. They may be brainstorming, cooperative learning, problem solving, role play, teaching songs, discussion, and a lot of other things, other strategies that will help your student to use. There might be projects, okay, that will help a student to work together, to work in groups, to divide rules, and to learn while they are doing this, okay? Let's now talk about it, as I mentioned before, review. What is review? Okay, what is a review stage? This we are talking about, as we mentioned at the very beginning of our session today, we are talking about different stages of lesson planning. We talked about objectives, we talked about teaching aids, we talked about strategy. Now we are talking about review, okay? A review connects the current lesson with the previous lesson. How I'm going to do that? By going over points that were taught or learned previously. For example, you are going to say, last time we learned about so and so and so, okay? Good reviews, listen to this carefully and pay attention. Good reviews are not teacher dominated. I mean that a good teachers are those who do not do everything in the lesson. A good teachers, okay, a good teacher is the one who gives his student a chance to participate. Is the one who gives his student to take an active part in the lesson. Okay? So I like to say good teachers are those who do not teach, but they give their students chance to learn. I like this very much. Don't try to teach a lot, okay, but give your student chance to learn. You may teach, but your student do not learn. So think of how to give them a chance to learn. Think them how to help them to learn. Okay, so don't teach too much, but give your student to learn too much. Okay, so good reviews are not teacher dominated. They should allow students to demonstrate what they learned and what they remember and what they can apply, okay, during their learning. Okay, let's move to another step of lesson planning, which is warm up. Exactly, if you are a football player and you have an important match today, I think before playing the main match, okay, you need to warm yourself up. You need to energize your muscles, okay? Otherwise, if you do not do that, you won't be able to play the match well. This is exactly what is happening during the warm-up. Why is warm-up? Why is it important? Okay? First of all, it creates expectation. It activates vocabulary. It checks their previous knowledge. It also gets the student involved in the lesson. It paves the way for the new material. It also, what I like most, unify minds of the pupil into one direction, which is the new topic. So, in warming up, you try to attract the attention of your pupil to what you are going. You try to tell them, I am in the classroom. Pay attention to me and listen to me so as I can help you to learn properly. You try to unify their minds to be with you. You try to help them to concentrate on what you are going to teach. So it also correlates the material to the student past experience. Okay? The purpose of warm-up is to help students get in the mood for the class. You prepare them for the mood of the class. A warm-up may be necessary to wake them up. If they are not active a lot, you try to wake them up, make them happy to be there. And I like this very much. We need to change school to be a place of happiness, not a place of punishment. Okay? How to help them love your lesson, how to help them smile when they see you, how to make them love what you are teaching. If you try to create such a relationship between you and your people, I think you will be a very successful teacher. Okay? You try to set them to the tune for what will follow, what they will do after that. We all know that starting the lesson with a good hook activity, with a good attractive activity, sets up for a better chance for success. It captures the students and draws them into the lesson. Okay? Ideas for warm-up activity. What are the activities that I can use as a warm-up? It may be a very simple and short story as a warm-up. It may be a video, okay? It may be a song. It may be simple questions. It may be situations that happened to you while going to school. You may use it as a warm-up. It may be a picture, just a picture. It may be a dialogue. It may be a listening text. These are different ideas for warm-up activities. Okay? Let's move to another stage of the lesson, which is presentation of new material. Okay? How to present the new material. Okay? So what is meant by presentation in classroom language? What does presentation mean in the stage of lesson planning? Presentation is what a teacher does to introduce the new material. What a teacher does to introduce the new material. It may be listening, maybe reading, writing, speaking, structure, vocabulary, a task, a text, or a concept. It is the first step to mastery of the lesson. So, presentation of the new material. What is the purpose of the presentation? Why do we present? Okay, we present. Okay, presentation may be three things. Input. You are going to help your pupils to take knowledge and information through different senses. Through hearing, maybe touching or feeling things, through seeing, through smelling. Okay, this is, we call it input. Okay, then they are going to put them in their mind to process the information or the knowledge. Then they are going to have what we call it output. Okay, presentation of the new material. There are different stages of presentation. Number one is attention. This is the first step of good presentation. To be a good presenter, you need to attract the attention of your audience or of the people who are listening to you or who are watching you. So number one, attention. Number two, perception. Number three, understanding. Number four, short-term memory. And the last one is long-term memory. Let's explain the first step of presentation, which is attention. Attention is the first step in presenting the new material. Don't teach unless the pupils are attentive. Otherwise, you are wasting your time and effort. Okay? So, the first step of presenting new material is attention. And attention, okay, in attention you try to attract your pupils' attention to be with you. So, attention is the first step in presenting the new lesson. The attention of the student should be focused on the new material. The learner has to be alert, watching and waiting for whatever coming. And of course this depends upon your own way of presentation. It needs to be attractive, it needs to be interesting, exciting for the pupils, okay, and so on. Okay, what can the teacher do to get and keep the student attention? Okay, the teacher can, first of all, can choose the material that is attractive and interesting for his particular students. Okay, there is a problem here. I'm not allowed to choose what is suitable for the pupil. As we say, even if you are not allowed to choose what is suitable for your pupils, you can change this to be suitable for your pupils by what we call it bookmaking. Make learning related to the pupil. Okay, even if it's not related at the beginning of the lesson, try to make it related after that by helping them to change what is not related to be related to them. Okay, so, and the teacher can choose the material that is attractive and interesting for his particular students and appropriate to their level. Don't try to teach something which is much higher than their level. They will not be attentive to what you are teaching. Okay, by doing this, you distract them. They will not pay attention to you at all because you are teaching something which is really difficult for them to understand. Okay, he can plan the lesson so that his student become active participant. We're returning back again to planning. Don't try to teach without planning. Don't say that I know everything, I am expert, it's not necessary for me to plan because I am an experienced teacher. No, even experienced teacher need to plan the lesson, need to think the lesson. If they are experienced, I'm sure that they will improve and develop your lesson from one to one gradually by adding their own previous experience regarding teaching and learning. This is number one, which is attention. Let's move to step 2 in presentation, which is perception. Perception is the second step of presenting the new material. What does it mean? What is the meaning of perception in presenting new material? It means seeing and hearing. All pupils in the classroom should see you well and should hear you without any difficulty. So, good teachers have clear voice, okay? Good teachers help their pupils to see them properly, okay? The new material should be clearly seen on the board. If write something, it should be clearly seen, okay? It also should involve more than one sense. The more senses you help your pupils to use, okay, the more learning they will get. They will learn a lot if they use a lot of senses, okay? Senses, if sometimes you ask them just to see, if you ask them to see something and touch it, it will be okay, okay? So try to use a lot of senses that will help your pupils to learn a lot, and this will help students with different multiple intelligences to learn, okay? It should also involve more than one sense. The other thing, teachers should give more than one example to model to clarify it. Okay, try to vary the activities, try to vary or use different examples that will suit different students in the classroom, because I think all students can learn in the same way. Okay, each pupil has their own password, and a good teacher is the one who tries to discover the password of each learner in front of you. If you do this, I'm sure that you will save a lot of time and a lot of effort helping them to learn properly. Okay, so look for the best word of each learner in front of you. What can the teacher do to support the student perception? By perception we see saying, their ability to see you well and their ability to hear you well of the material presented. Okay? The teacher can check, you need to check that everyone can hear and see you clearly. He can employ more than one sense, visual senses or auditory, and allow many chance for the students to see and hear. Okay, this is the second step of presentation. So number one is attention, number two is perception. The third step of presenting the lesson is understanding. So number one is attention, okay. Number two, second step of presentation or presenting new material is perception. The third step is understanding. Understanding is the third stage for presenting the new material. Okay? What needs to happen for a student to understand the new material? How can I help my pupil to understand the new material? The new material must be, to help the student understand the new material, the new material must be linked to what they already know. Okay? About the language, whether it is form or about the reality, which is the meaning. So again, the new material must be linked to what they already know about the language, which is by this the form of the language, and about reality of the language, which is the meaning of the language. The new material fits into the student background knowledge. Okay, now if you try to help your student to be very attentive by attracting their attention, and you give them a chance to have a sort of suitable and proper perception, they can understand the lesson. Now you moved the knowledge, the information in the book, to their short-term memory. Short-term memory. Now the information become to get into their knowledge, their memory, their minds. Now it is in the short-term memory. Short-term memory is the fourth stage for presenting the new material. Okay, what makes the new material memorable? Short-term memory, movements. Sometimes this is your role as a teacher. Okay, so sometimes you use some movements as gestures, miming, and acting makes the new material memorable. The student may, or the learners may forget the information, but they remember specific movements you do in the classroom to remind them of the information learned. So movements such as gestures, miming, and acting makes the new material memorable. Material that is fresh, colorful, unique, entertaining, and dramatic can be of great help for the student to learn and to memorize. Okay? I think, okay, now we talked and discussed and explained different stages of the lesson. We talked about objectives, we talked about teaching aids, we discussed review, we discussed warm-up strategy, presentation, and different stages of presentations. Okay, I think now we come to the end of our session today. I hope I hope it is really helpful for you, and I hope it will change your performance and make it better for the future. Thank you again for watching for me. Thank you again for paying attention, and see you again. Goodbye.